Oh, go out there and be a take-charge guy.
I think I can.
Oh, show some authority.
I think I can.
Go out and tell them.
I think I can.
Go out and show them.
I can.
For millions of fans, Dawn Wells will always be remembered as the sweet and lovable Mary Ann from Gilligan's Island. But behind her warm smile, the real story was far more complicated. One cast member reportedly made Dawn's time on the show far more difficult. And what happened left a lasting mark on her long after the cameras stopped rolling. Join us as we uncover the hidden conflicts, shocking stories, and surprising truths behind Dawn Wells' time on Gilligan's Island. The heart of Gilligan's Island. Dawn Wells did not come to Hollywood as a major star. Before she became famous, she won beauty pageants and represented Nevada in the Miss America competition. After that, she began working in television, taking small roles and learning the business one step at a time. She was talented, friendly, and easy to work with, but she was still relatively new when she auditioned for Gilligan's Island. Getting the role of Mary Ann Summers changed her life. Mary Ann was written as the sweet, down-to-earth farm girl who balanced out the glamorous movie star, Ginger. Audiences immediately connected with her. She felt approachable, kind, and genuine. Viewers saw her as someone they could trust. Children liked her, parents liked her, and many fans felt she was the most relatable person on the island. As the show became popular, something surprising happened. Mary Ann often received just as much fan attention as Ginger, and in many cases, even more. The famous Ginger, or Mary Ann? Debate became a cultural phenomenon. Fans wrote letters, voted in polls, and argued over which character they preferred. For many viewers, Mary Ann represented warmth and sincerity, while Ginger represented glamour and fantasy. However, the network did not always treat the two actresses the same way. Because Ginger was the Hollywood movie star character, executives often pushed Tina Louise as the glamorous face of the series. She appeared prominently in promotional materials, magazine spreads, and publicity campaigns. Dawn Wells was certainly included, but many observers felt she was not given equal attention, even though fan interest in Mary Ann was enormous. Over time, this became frustrating for Dawn. She worked hard, showed up prepared, and became one of the most beloved parts of the show, yet she often felt overlooked. Interviews frequently focused on the rivalry between Ginger and Mary Ann instead of her actual performance. The media seemed more interested in comparing the two women than celebrating what Dawn brought to the series. Being constantly viewed as the other girl took an emotional toll. Imagine spending years helping create a hit show while hearing that someone else is considered the real star. Dawn rarely complained publicly during the show's original run. She stayed professional, smiled during interviews, and continued supporting the series. Years later, she spoke more honestly about those feelings. She suggested that Mary Ann was not just comic relief or a supporting character. She was the emotional center of the show. According to Dawn, many fans saw Mary Ann as the person who held the group together with kindness and common sense. She once reflected that Mary Ann was the heart of the show, even if the industry was often more focused on glamour than on warmth. What makes her story interesting is that, despite feeling underappreciated at times, Dawn never seemed bitter about playing Mary Ann. She understood how much the character meant to people. Fans continued to approach her decades later to say that Mary Ann made them smile, comforted them during hard times, and felt like a real friend. And that was only the beginning, because the friendly image of the cast hid tensions that were growing behind the scenes. Mary Ann vs. Ginger. One of the biggest reasons people still talk about Gilligan's Island today is the famous question: Ginger or Mary Ann? For decades, fans have debated which character they liked better. It seemed like harmless fun, but behind the scenes, that question became much more than a simple fan poll. Over time, it helped create a story that followed both actresses for years and, according to many reports, added real tension to their working relationship. From the beginning, the media loved comparing the two women. Newspapers and magazines regularly asked readers to choose between Ginger, the glamorous movie star played by Tina Louise, and Mary Ann, the sweet farm girl played by Dawn Wells. Interviews often focused on the rivalry instead of the actresses' work. Rather than asking about the making of the show or their careers, reporters kept returning to the same question: which one is better? As the debate grew more popular, it became part of the show's identity. Fans picked sides, television specials brought it up again and again, and years after the series ended, the question still followed both women wherever they went. For Tina Louise, the situation may have been especially frustrating. Before joining Gilligan's Island, Tina had already built a reputation as a serious actress. She had appeared in films, studied acting, and hoped for a career that would allow her to take on dramatic roles. When she accepted the role of Ginger Grant, she reportedly believed the glamorous movie star would become one of the show's biggest attractions. Since Ginger was written as a beautiful Hollywood celebrity, many expected she would naturally become the breakout character. But audiences often surprised everyone. Instead of focusing only on Ginger's beauty, many viewers connected more deeply with Mary Ann's kindness, honesty, and friendly personality. She felt approachable, and fans across the country responded warmly to Dawn Wells's performance. Soon, Mary Ann had become just as popular as Ginger, and in many fan polls, she even came out ahead. According to stories shared over the years by cast members and people connected to the production, this growing popularity created tension. While some details remain based on personal recollections rather than confirmed facts, several accounts suggest Tina was unhappy that the spotlight was being shared instead of remaining focused on Ginger. Dawn Wells, however, rarely spoke negatively about her co-star. In later interviews, Dawn explained that she genuinely tried to build a friendly relationship with Tina. She admired her experience and respected her talent. She reportedly made several efforts to get to know her better during filming, hoping they could enjoy working together. Those efforts, according to Dawn, never really succeeded. Tina developed a reputation for keeping to herself while filming. During breaks, she often stayed separate from the rest of the cast instead of joining conversations or group activities. Several cast members later described the group as being close overall, but Tina was frequently mentioned as someone who preferred privacy. She would often finish her scenes and leave, rather than spend extra time socializing. That difference in personality became noticeable to everyone around them. While Dawn was known for chatting with crew members, signing autographs, and laughing with the cast between takes, Tina appeared much more reserved. Some people simply believed she was private by nature. Others felt the distance reflected growing frustration with the direction the show had taken. As time went on, members of the cast quietly noticed the growing divide. They rarely spoke about it publicly during the show's original run, but years later, several interviews hinted that there was an uncomfortable atmosphere whenever the subject of Dawn and Tina came up. Most avoided taking sides openly, but many acknowledged that the friendship fans imagined between Mary Ann and Ginger did not exist behind the cameras. Even after the show became a television classic, Dawn continued to speak carefully whenever she was asked about Tina Louise. She never attacked her former co-star or tried to embarrass her. Instead, she offered simple and thoughtful answers. One comment stood out more than the others. Dawn explained that she had tried to become friends, but eventually accepted that not everyone wants the same kind of relationship. She said she respected that, even though it was disappointing. It was a quiet answer, but many fans believed it revealed how much effort she had made to keep the peace. The rivalry may have started with magazine headlines and fan debates, but the real problems behind the scenes were only beginning to surface. And as it turned out, Tina Louise wasn't the only person on the set who made Dawn's job more difficult. The cast member she couldn't stand. While Gilligan's Island looked like one of television's happiest shows, life behind the cameras was not always as cheerful. The series was built around comedy, but making a successful television show meant long filming days, tight schedules, and plenty of pressure. As the seasons went on, personalities sometimes clashed, and the friendly image seen on screen did not always match what was happening off camera. Like many television productions, the cast included people with very different backgrounds and working styles. Some enjoyed joking around between takes, while others preferred to keep to themselves. Those differences did not always create problems, but when stress built up, small disagreements could quickly become bigger ones. One person who often helped keep the peace was Bob Denver, who played Gilligan. Although his character was clumsy and playful, Bob was known by many cast members as someone who tried to calm disagreements whenever they appeared. He reportedly had a good relationship with most of the cast and often stepped in when tensions started rising. Bob also had strong opinions about the scripts and was willing to speak up if he felt something could be improved. While producers did not always appreciate those conversations, several co-stars respected him for standing up for the quality of the show. Another calming influence was Alan Hale Jr., who played the skipper. Off-camera, Alan had a reputation for being warm, welcoming, and easy to get along with. Many people described him as the father figure of the cast. He treated crew members kindly, kept the mood light during long shooting days, and generally managed to stay on good terms with everyone. Even when disagreements happened, Alan often tried to smooth things over rather than make matters worse. Not everyone on the set was viewed in the same way, however. Over the years, stories began to circulate about Jim Backus, who played millionaire Thurston Howell III. It is important to note that many of these accounts come from interviews, personal memories, and reports shared years after the show ended, rather than verified facts. Still, several stories painted a picture of someone whose behavior could be difficult to predict. According to these accounts, Jim sometimes experienced noticeable mood swings. There were also claims that alcohol occasionally affected his behavior, making certain days on set more challenging than others. Some people described him as funny and generous one moment, but sharp or critical the next. These stories have never been fully confirmed, but they have remained part of the show's behind-the-scenes history. Some reports also suggested that younger or less experienced cast members occasionally felt intimidated. Dawn Wells was the youngest member of the main cast and was still building her career when the show began. She rarely spoke openly about negative experiences, but years later she hinted that certain actors behaved as though they owned the place. She never mentioned anyone by name, leaving fans to wonder exactly who she meant. That decision became one of the biggest mysteries surrounding her memories of the show. Interviewers asked Dawn many times whether she had been mistreated by anyone on the cast. She consistently avoided naming names. Instead of criticizing former co-stars, she usually changed the subject or answered in careful, respectful language. She seemed determined not to damage anyone's reputation, even if she had difficult memories of working with them. Her silence only encouraged more speculation. Fans examined old interviews, compared comments from different cast members, and tried to figure out who had made her time on the show more difficult. Because Dawn never gave a direct answer, the question has remained unanswered, leaving people to separate confirmed facts from rumors that have grown over the decades. But personal disagreements were only part of the story, because rumors of romance soon added a whole new layer of tension to the island. Jealousy and crushes. As stories about disagreements behind the scenes continued to spread, another set of rumors began following the cast of Gilligan's Island. This time, the focus was not on arguments or professional rivalries, but on possible romantic feelings. Like many television shows where actors spent long hours working together, people naturally wondered whether friendships had grown into something more. One of the most talked-about relationships involved Dawn Wells and Bob Denver. Bob, who played Gilligan, and Dawn were known to get along very well. According to several cast members and crew accounts over the years, the two spent a great deal of time together between scenes. They laughed often, shared private conversations, and appeared genuinely comfortable around one another. Their friendship seemed natural, and many people believed they trusted each other both on and off the set. Because of that closeness, rumors quickly began to spread. Some crew members reportedly wondered whether there was more to their relationship than simple friendship. Fans also noticed the easy chemistry they shared whenever they appeared together in interviews or public events. Although their characters were never written as a romantic couple, many people believed the warmth between the actors looked completely genuine. Still, no solid evidence has ever confirmed that Dawn Wells and Bob Denver were romantically involved. Most of the stories come from behind-the-scenes memories, interviews given years later, and long-standing Hollywood gossip. While the rumors have remained popular for decades, they have never been supported by clear proof from either actor. Adding even more mystery were claims that another cast member may have quietly developed feelings for Dawn. The identity of that person has never been confirmed. Over the years, fans have guessed who it might have been, but those guesses remain speculation. Neither Dawn nor the rest of the cast ever publicly identified anyone. Dawn herself later admitted something that kept these stories alive. In interviews years after the show ended, she acknowledged that there were crushes among cast members during the production. She explained that romantic feelings sometimes develop when people spend months working closely together. However, she chose her words carefully. She never said who had feelings for whom, and she avoided giving details that might embarrass anyone involved. That careful approach left plenty of room for speculation. According to some crew recollections, the atmosphere on set changed during the later seasons. A few people remembered certain cast members becoming quieter around one another. Others claimed there were moments of jealousy or awkwardness during filming breaks. Some even believed personal feelings affected friendships behind the scenes, although these stories have never been fully verified. It is important to separate what is known from what has simply been repeated over the years. The confirmed facts are limited. Dawn and Bob shared a close friendship. Dawn admitted there were romantic feelings somewhere within the cast during the show's run. Beyond that, many of the more dramatic stories remain unconfirmed. Hollywood has always been filled with rumors, and successful television shows often attract stories that grow larger with time. What makes Dawn's role in all of this especially interesting is her refusal to fuel the gossip. Even when interviewers directly asked about rumored romances, she politely declined to give names or confirm specific relationships. She believed some personal matters should stay private, even decades after the show had ended. That decision protected the people she had worked with, but it also ensured that fans would continue wondering what really happened behind the cameras. Without direct confirmation from those involved, many of the stories remain just that, stories. But once the cameras stopped rolling for good, the biggest conflicts were no longer about feelings. They were about money. Money changed everything. When Gilligan's Island ended in 1967, no one involved could have predicted what would happen next. The show had enjoyed a loyal audience during its original run, but its real success came after it left network television. Through syndication, the series found a second life. Local television stations across the United States began airing reruns, and generation after generation discovered the adventures of Gilligan, the skipper, Mary Ann, Ginger, and the rest of the castaways. What had once been seen as a simple sitcom slowly became a television classic. The show's popularity seemed endless. It aired every day in many markets, inspired animated spin-offs, reunion movies, books, merchandise, and continued fan interest for decades. Millions of people watched the reruns, making Gilligan's Island one of the most recognizable sitcoms in television history. But while the networks and studios continued making money from the series, the actors' experience was very different. The biggest reason was the type of contracts they had signed in the 1960s. At the time, television syndication was not expected to become the massive business it is today. Many actor contracts simply did not include generous royalty payments for reruns because no one imagined shows would keep earning money year after year. As a result, most of the original cast received very little financial benefit from the endless reruns. For fans, this came as a surprise. Many assumed that actors from such a famous show must have become wealthy from decades of television broadcasts. In reality, several cast members later explained that they saw little of the money the series continued to generate. While television stations replayed the show thousands of times, the performers who made it memorable often received little or nothing beyond their original salaries. Dawn Wells later spoke openly about this disappointment. She loved playing Mary Ann and appreciated the loyal fans who kept the show alive, but she also acknowledged the frustration of watching such a successful series produce enormous profits without significantly improving the financial lives of many of its stars. The situation became even more complicated whenever reunion projects were planned. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, producers explored television movies, reunion specials, and other ways to bring the cast back together. Those projects required new contract negotiations, and according to various reports, those discussions were not always smooth. Several stories suggested that some cast members were able to negotiate stronger deals than others. While many details remain private, accounts from interviews over the years describe disagreements over salaries, billing, and creative decisions. Not everyone felt they were being treated equally. Dawn reportedly felt disappointed that she was sometimes left out of important conversations during the early planning stages of reunion projects. Although she eventually appeared in several reunions, she later hinted that decisions were occasionally made, without including everyone who had helped make the original show a success. Looking back, Dawn spoke honestly about how money changed relationships. She once reflected that the cast had often felt like a family while making the show. But financial negotiations revealed a different side of the business. When contracts, salaries, and future opportunities became involved, friendships sometimes became strained. People naturally wanted the best deal for themselves, but those negotiations also created hurt feelings that lasted for years. The contrast was difficult to ignore. Gilligan's Island remained one of television's most profitable classic sitcoms, entertaining millions around the world. Yet some of the actors most closely associated with it struggled financially long after the cameras stopped rolling. For Dawn Wells, that reality was one of the hardest parts of her story. She had helped create a character loved by generations, but the financial rewards never truly matched the show's lasting success. And sadly, the money problems were only the beginning of the personal struggles Dawn would soon have to face. The personal crises. After Gilligan's Island ended, Many fans expected Dawn Wells to become one of television's biggest stars. She had played one of the most recognizable characters on TV, and Mary Ann remained incredibly popular with audiences. But Hollywood did not always reward television actors the way people imagined. Instead of being offered a long list of leading roles, Dawn found that her career slowed down much sooner than she had hoped. She continued acting, but the opportunities were very different from the success she had enjoyed during the sitcom's run. She appeared in guest roles on television, acted in theater productions across the country, and remained active in live entertainment. She also became a regular guest at fan conventions, where thousands of people lined up to meet the woman who had brought Mary Ann Summers to life. Those events became an important part of her career. Fans of all ages wanted photographs, autographs, and stories from the set of Gilligan's Island. Dawn always made time for them. She answered questions with patience, smiled for pictures, and often said she appreciated that people had never forgotten the show. Even decades after it ended, Mary Ann still meant something special to millions of viewers. Behind that cheerful public image, however, life was becoming much more difficult. One of the biggest challenges came in 2007, when Dawn was pulled over during a traffic stop in Idaho. What might have been a routine encounter quickly became national news. Police reported finding items in her vehicle that led to allegations involving drug possession. Almost overnight, headlines appeared across newspapers and entertainment websites, shocking fans who had always associated Dawn with the wholesome image of Mary Ann. The situation quickly became more complicated than the headlines suggested. Dawn strongly denied that the drugs belonged to her. She explained that the items had been left in the car by someone else who had borrowed the vehicle. While the allegations attracted widespread attention, prosecutors did not pursue drug possession charges against her. Instead, she ultimately pleaded guilty to reckless driving, resolving the legal case without a conviction on the drug-related accusations. Even so, the damage to her reputation had already been done. For someone whose public image had been built on kindness, honesty, and innocence, the media coverage was especially painful. Many reports focused on the most dramatic claims without giving equal attention to how the case was eventually resolved. Although Dawn continued to defend herself, she knew that some people would always remember the headlines more than the outcome. Unfortunately, that legal controversy came during a period when she was already facing serious financial difficulties. Despite starring in one of television's most famous sitcoms, Dawn was far from wealthy. As discussed earlier, Gilligan's Island never provided the kind of long-term royalty income that many people assume its stars received. Acting opportunities had become less frequent, and the steady paychecks she once enjoyed were no longer there. She was also carrying responsibilities that many fans never knew about. Dawn quietly helped support members of her family as they grew older, placing their needs ahead of her own financial security. Medical costs, everyday living expenses, and a shrinking acting career gradually created enormous pressure. Still, she rarely complained. Instead, she continued traveling to conventions, appearing in stage productions whenever possible, and doing interviews that celebrated the show rather than focusing on her personal struggles. She understood that many fans wanted to remember Mary Ann as cheerful and optimistic, and she did her best to preserve that image. That may have been one of the hardest parts of all. For decades, people expected Dawn Wells to always be Mary Ann. They wanted the same warm smile, the same positive attitude, and the same friendly personality they had loved since the 1960s. Even when life became difficult, she felt a responsibility to live up to those expectations. She rarely allowed the public to see how much stress she was carrying behind the scenes. Despite the setbacks, Dawn never stopped showing gratitude toward her fans. She believed the love people had for Mary Ann was a gift, even if maintaining that image sometimes came at a personal cost. But soon, fans would discover just how serious Dawn's financial struggles had really become, and the response would surprise everyone. Marianne needs money. By 2018, many fans assumed that Dawn Wells was living comfortably. After all, she had starred in one of the most loved sitcoms in television history. Gilligan's Island had been on the air for decades through reruns, and Marianne Summers remained one of the most recognizable characters ever created for television. To most people, it seemed impossible that someone so famous could be struggling financially. That is why the news came as such a surprise. In 2018, close friends of Dawn launched a GoFundMe campaign to help her with medical bills and everyday living expenses. The fundraiser explained that she had experienced serious financial setbacks, while also dealing with health problems that had become increasingly difficult to manage. For many fans, it was the first time they realized that the actress behind Marianne had been quietly facing hardships for years. The reaction was immediate. People across the country asked the same question: how could a television icon need financial help? Millions had watched Gilligan's Island. The show was still airing in reruns around the world. Many assumed that the cast must have earned large royalty checks every time the series was broadcast. Over the years, Dawn also faced rising medical costs and the normal expenses that come with everyday life. Acting opportunities had become less frequent, and maintaining a steady income became increasingly difficult. Friends who knew about her situation decided to step in because they believed she deserved help after bringing so much happiness to audiences for so many years. What happened next surprised even them. The fundraiser quickly attracted attention from fans around the world. Thousands of people donated, and the campaign eventually raised well over $100,000. Many contributors included personal messages thanking Dawn for the joy she had brought into their lives. Some shared childhood memories of watching Gilligan's Island with their families, while others explained that Marianne had always been their favorite character. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive into the untold stories behind Hollywood's biggest stars.